I saw this image on Twitter recently, which was screen capped from some 4chan thread by this somewhat infamous guy. As you can probably see, the meme goes that all guns in sci-fi games are just ones we recognize from real life, only colored all in black with LEDs and rails slapped on, which... I guess that does happen, but I think the truth is more nuanced than that. Now, I think the main reason why this would happen is rather simple. Firearms are generally kind of solved technologically. We figured out what sorts of designs work and what designs don't. Form tends to follow function, and the actual functions of firearm mechanisms haven't radically changed in decades, if not centuries. Let's run down some common gun archetypes the typical gamer will know. Automatic pistols are all going to look Glock-like because we're probably not going to figure out anything better than the better short recoil system. And nowadays, everyone wants a polymer-framed gun with a double-action trigger with a little safety dingus to avoid having to build in a manual safety. That's just where the market's been going in real life. And it's probably not likely to change. The only real innovations for handguns as of late have been turning the fire control bits into a separate unitized part so you can swap out the frame, and putting dovetail cuts into the slide so you can mount an optic there. That really only leaves so much room to deviate from having a rectangular slide, though. And again, the market wants a specific kind of pistol, and so all pistols have rectangular slides. Plus also, it's kinda easy to model that in 3D. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still room for designs that aren't just a tilting barrel striker-fired plastic service pistol. Guns like the Laugo Alien, Rideout Arsenal Dragon, and the FK Brunel are standouts. Those are pretty cool and unique, I would say. However, really, we should expect a futuristic powder-burning pistol to look mostly the same as a Glock 17, or maybe a SIG P320 in terms of form and function. Revolver technology also peaked long ago. The moment the swing-out cylinder was invented in, the late 1800s, that branch of the tech tree was just done. The only exotic design out there today is the Chiappa Rhino. Ever since rifles became automatic, they haven't really changed a lot. Even putting aside the AR-15 and the AK, we've already figured out gas blocks, rotating bolts, and so on. Everything that's different today, and potentially in the future, just kinda comes down to ergonomics nowadays. I'd say the only radical designs out there today are bullpup rifles. But even then, most of that is just down to making bullpup rifles more easily ambidextrous, like with the VHS-2 or the MDR. And again, I think that's mostly just ergonomics. Shotguns! Those also haven't changed since, the 1930s? We figured out how to make a pump-action shotgun a long time ago, and automatic shotguns are also mostly the same. You get gas-operated or recoil-operated, and that's pretty much it. The most exotic designs right now are the ones that aren't simply an action made into a single barrel and a single tube magazine in parallel. Which, those are pretty funky. I don't know how much you can expect those to take over in the future, though. And so, the most one should expect when extrapolating current firearm design into the future is such. A lot of angular surfaces, handguards with accessory mounting points, Picatinny rails everywhere, maybe an adjustable stock that also folds out of the way. But most likely, the stuff that's on the inside is going to be very similar to what's already been invented at least a century ago. And like I said before, form tends to follow function. And given real-life trends, that form is probably going to consist of a rectangular cross-section and a bunch of hard angles. There are, of course, some weapons that exist today that do look like they came from science fiction. Stuff like the FNP-90, Caltech KSG, SRM Arms 1216, the Calco M950, and a bunch of others. However, these kinds of guns represent ground-up solutions to perceived problems or challenges, or at least they're attempts to do something different for the sake of being different. I assume either of these are the rationale behind things like Caltech's stripper clip-fed pistols, and that new Ounce OZ folding pistol. Where's that Ounce Oz? Otherwise, the only fields of technology left to explore with guns right now are with ammo and computerized optics, and maybe materials technology, but that mostly just kind of feeds back into ammo. But that all being said, let's do a little media skimming. Since the image that kicked this off is about guns and video games, I'll call out examples from games I know of, and we'll start with something a little obscure. The way I came across this meme was thanks to the art of Kasaragul, who posted art of guns done up just like that. Kasaragul is also the lead, or sole, developer of East of Eden, a work-in-progress multiplayer shooter. A bunch of the guns available in the game right now are recognizable as real-world designs, but they do have a bunch of extra details and greebles, as well as some of the mimetic LEDs. Though, also, there is at least one railgun-looking weapon, And the assault rifles can have fun underbarrel attachments like a triple barrel grenade launcher or pump action shotgun. Now, while the game is set in the future, featuring a bunch of humans stranded on an alien megastructure, Kasaragol does make a rather cogent point for why the guns are designed this way. Because blasting aliens in the face in the year 22XX with a 50 cal mod deuce is what John Moses Browning would have wanted. I mean, hey, works for Brigador, why not other games? Oh, and speaking of Brigador, both the original game and the upcoming Killers have a bunch of weapons that are clear throwbacks to weapons of the past. In terms of the weapons you can mount on the various tanks and mechs and such, there's a Flak 88, the aforementioned M2 under a Portuguese name, and the Buzzsaw, which I assume is supposed to be based on the MG42. Brigador Killers, meanwhile, is going to have an arsenal almost entirely made of familiar weapons, though many of them are modified to be visually distinct with stickers, paint jobs, and extra gubbins on top. Now granted, Brigador is a rather interesting sort of setting, and it has a very interesting sort of aesthetic, and I think the throwback weapons do actually kind of fit, even standing against the backdrop of power suits and giant mechs. How about something with another interestingly juxtaposed aesthetic? Deus Ex! Deus Ex takes place in like 2050 or so, and while it has a rather grounded aesthetic for a cyberpunk game, the weapons still have a considerable streak of out there futurism in my opinion. The 10mm pistol is rather plain, but still kind of imposing for being so low poly. The assault rifle, meanwhile, is quite exotic, in my opinion. It has a compact bullpup design, some sort of weird side pan magazine, and an underbarrel 20mm launcher. The infamous Gep gun is a rather overwrought missile launcher, while there's also a plain-ass rocket launcher available to use. There's a handheld flamethrower that uses a canister instead of a backpack, a nice big sniper rifle you can get off the bat, in 30-06 for some reason. I think the funkiest firearms in the whole game are actually the shotguns. There's a so-called sawed-off shotgun, although it looks like it was kind of purpose-built to be compact. Kind of like a weird fusion of a Spas 12 and a Cerberus Super Shorty. It's got a nice folding foregrip and everything. Damn loud, but that is what you could expect for a short-barreled shotgun. Later on, you can get the assault shotgun, which I think is truly one of the most out-there weapon designs in any game. As the name would imply, it is semi-automatic, and you can really just hose down an enemy with buckshot. While it looks like a drum magazine, actually appears to be a ring that you put your arm through, making this sort of like a bullpup. Or at least it sure looks like that when you see it being used by an NPC or another player. Which makes me wonder how the hell the ammo feed works and how you're supposed to reload it. There are more exotic weapons like the Dragon's Tooth sword, or the plasma rifle, but those are definitely more bleeding edge compared to all the guns in the game. Which honestly is kind of something that bugs me about Human Revolution. The guns in that game fall into the same aesthetic trap as the rest of the game, where everything looks more futuristic than the original game that takes place later in the timeline. I don't know if they were trying to go for like, oh well, you know, like things were shinier in the past, and then later on things declined. Like, I don't know if that's what they were going for. I don't like it though. Even if I think they're neat otherwise. Fear is in a somewhat similar situation, I'd say. The first game had a pretty grounded sci-fi aesthetic, much like Deus Ex, with a very conservative use of LEDs, if any. But the parts that are futuristic looking seem to take inspiration from Shiro Masamune's works, which is pretty damn cool. The guns, however, kinda hew closer to the realistic side of things, with a bit of 2000s flair to them on top of that. The SMG is literally just a blockier MP5, the shotgun is just a Spas 12, the assault rifle is just an SL8 with G36 bits bolted on, and so on. You do have some exotic weapons like the particle cannon, but the one crazy weapon I want to call out is the MP50 repeating cannon. That there is a rather memorable weapon, even if you only get to use it very briefly. I don't know in what universe this would be a viable or desirable military weapon, but I'm kind of for it, even if it would be stupidly heavy, awkwardly balanced, and probably very hard to use overall. Fear 2 goes a bit overboard by comparison, I'd say. Putting aside how a lot of the guns are just mashups of existing designs, so many of them are festooned with shiny lights. So I guess now we have our real first example of the meme in action. Here's a classic. E.Y.E, Divine Cybermancy. The guns of E.Y.E are a delightfully weird mashup of familiar and exotic, archaic and yet futuristic at the same time. The game takes place sometime after the 23rd century, in an ecologically exhausted universe of space colonization and corporate shadow warfare. There are weapons in E.Y.E that seem familiar, or at the very least could exist in our world, but there are others that are, out there. The pistol you always start with is the Black Crow. It is a generic blocky handgun, but the cruciform design on it does make me think of Beyond the Grave's pistols from Gungrave. Die, vending machine! Die! I mean, you know, not the same thing, but still. The other pistol weapon you have access to off the bat is the BK-13. This is actually a pair of 45 caliber machine pistols. They always come akimbo, but you can wield one in combination with a sword. The Motra SMG, which you do have to unlock, is a rather conventional weapon in my opinion. Though, what's not conventional about it is that the magazine doubles as the butt plate for the stock. Maybe not the smartest place to put the magazine, but hey, it is a weapon from the future. One of the weapons you can unlock is the Bear Killer. This is a 4-shot, 44 caliber top break revolver, so powerful it can one-shot the lawyer-friendly cyber demon enemy. Not to mention those annoying, silent but deadly Federation gunships. Hold on. I think I got it! That's not a Rogue Gian team, that's a Deus Ex Machina! Sweet Jesus! I like to think this thing fires hunting rifle cartridges cut down the neck for 44 or something like that. That's the only way I can explain how a revolver this big hits so goddamn hard with 4.44 caliber bullets, while only having enough room in the cylinder for 4 shots. I mean, look at the size of those bad boys. Now here's a weapon that probably a lot of people will know about. The HS-10, a MAC-10 lookalike that fires some sort of 2.5mm round from a 100-round magazine. As those who've watched Mandalore Gaming will know, this has 2 fire modes, a blistering fast full auto setting, and an even faster fuller auto mode. Worth noting is that the HS-10 seems to have a rotary barrel cluster hidden under the receiver frame, which probably explains the insane fire rate. This gun feels kind of like a reference to that one part of Ghost in the Shell, of the guy who had the SMG loaded with hypervelocity armor-piercing rounds. There's also my favorite of the assault rifles, the S6000. This also uses 100-round magazines of 2.5mm ammo, and it also fires decently quickly. Just as a sidebar, what the hell kind of ammo is this that works so well despite being so small in caliber? Flechettes? Anyways, check out this reload. Your player character just hits some sort of button, then puts in what I assume is a fresh, capsule-shaped magazine in the top rear end of the gun, where it nests so nicely. I bet this is supposed to be a riff on the FN F2000, but I'd personally take this over that any day. The style of magazine housing is pretty similar to another rifle in the game, the Bosco sniper rifle. The Bosco's reload animation involves hitting an unseen mag release or bolt hold open or something, then placing a fresh 20-round mag of 308 into the recess, which is right about where the chamber end of the barrel is. I feel like it was kinda rare to see that in FPS from this era. Also, peep how the reciprocating charging handle goes all the way back there. I feel like that helps kick the mag out when you reload. The game does also have some comparatively plain weapons available. The KA-93 is one of the more normal weapons in the game you can get from the start. It's a generic assault rifle with an angular body, a skeletal buttstock, and a straight box magazine poking out at an angle. This gun could exist today and probably not draw too much attention. It is arguably as basic as it gets. The Sulfato minigun is a bit out there, but then again, handheld miniguns are a dime a dozen in sci-fi, even if this one has a bit of a 40k aesthetic to it. Really, the only thing that makes it stand out to me is that you can have a weapon this powerful from the start, albeit with some caveats. Well, also, it is pretty damn chunky for only being in 5.56. But then again, you can fire multiple 500-round belts from this thing without it melting down. Another sniper rifle is the TRK. This is a 50 caliber semi-auto sniper that hits hard, and sounds powerful to boot. The design does make me think of various Soviet semi-auto rifles. You know, stuff like the Tokarevs, the Semenovs. It does give kind of a similar vibe to those. The Depez-a-Door shotgun is a pump action fed by a drum magazine, which is something that could totally exist in our world if it already doesn't. That being said, I don't think you're fitting 32 rounds of 12 gauge or even 20 gauge in such a svelte-looking drum. Oh, also, there's just a straight-up double-barreled sawed-off shotgun. It's called the Betty Boom. Even centuries into the future, some things just don't change. The only funky things about it are the rear iron sight, and the fact that this actually seems to be a factory product in the universe. Oh, also, I forgot to mention the Rotten Mound. It's literally just an AK. It's just an AK, but they swapped the barrel and the gas tube around. That's it. Beyond Citadel is another example of unusual weapon design, even though a lot of it is quite familiar at the same time. According to the lore, the game takes place well into the future, of a humanity that once conquered the stars before falling to an invasion. All the guns exude a sort of diesel punk to Cold War aesthetic, many of them being steel and wood in appearance. You do have some conventional pistols like the snub-nose revolver and the pistol that's literally just the Magnum from Marathon, but there's also the Meta Magnum from the original Citadel you can find. The Meta Magnum is an automatic, tube-fed 44 caliber pistol, most likely inspired by Kiriko QV's anti-armor Magnum from Armored Trooper Votoms. It can be upgraded with a deeper tube magazine, burst fire capability, and a secondary fire that lets you shoot a rifle grenade out the muzzle. In the assault rifle category, you've got the Storm Rifle, which does look a bit FAMAS or Groza-esque, and it does have an underbarrel grenade launcher, which is not unusual. But there's also the Machine Rifle from the first game, which looks like a mutated show shot and has an underbarrel laser, which is really damn powerful. Oh, also, you can buy a breech-loading rifle if you're broke or crazy. In the shotgun category, you've got an over-under double barrel, a classic pump action, and my personal favorite, the Shock Hammer, a semi-auto shotgun that seems pretty similar to the Armsole Striker. All of them let you load explosive slugs instead of regular shells, too. Another weapon category consists of nothing but 50 caliber guns. The first one you get, and nearest the best of the bunch, is the Cavalry Carbine, a lever action with a shotgun secondary. The heavy machine gun from the first game is back, and it's pretty okay, if a bit weird to reload on top of being ammo hungry. It also has micro missiles on top of that. However, in my opinion, the best of the category is the Zeta Rifle, a semi-auto battle rifle that's basically a better version of the Cavalry Carbine. It also has some sort of explosive shotgun secondary. There's only one sniper rifle you can get, which is the Whale Gun, which looks like an op scaled up to 20 freaking millimeter, and it is real good. You can even load the magazine without having to take it out. You can get an SMG that's basically the Minebia PM9, the Japanese copy of the Uzi, except now it fires 10mm flechettes. However, there's another weapon you get to replace it in the late game called the Mitrailleuse. This crazy multi-barrel gun fires stupid fast, and every time you let go of the trigger or the magazine runs out, it fires an extra shotgun blast. Also, whenever the mag runs out, it just reloads automatically. You can just burn through your ammo stupid quick with this gun. And if you need more firepower, the secondary also fires rocket grenades. And this isn't even mentioning the rocket launchers, or the other explosive weapons, or the angelic weapons, or the handheld Gatling gun, or even the fusion pistol for Marathon. Yes, it's here. It's literally just the fusion pistol for Marathon. Most of Half-Life 2's guns are based on real-life weapons, which may be because of Ted Backman. However, there is one exception, besides the gravity gun, of course. The Overwatch Standard Issue Pulse Rifle, aka the AR-2, is an interesting example of a truly exotic weapon. Being an adaptation of alien technology for use by transhuman soldiers, the AR-2 vaguely resembles an assault rifle, but the mechanism is completely different. This doesn't fire metallic bullets, and instead fires some sort of dark energy. And the AR-2 looks like it's electromechanically actuated instead of using any kind of spring pressure. A firing pin strikes a plug instead of a cartridge, unleashing a single small bolt of dark energy. A sort of metallic finger reloads the gun by pulling a fresh plug from the big shield-like magazine, with the firing pin then pushing it for it to see into the chamber. This gun was actually originally designed by Valve as a flare-launching rifle known as the Incendiary Rifle, or E.Y.E. rifle, with the latter name still being used by the AR2 internally in the final game. Conveniently, when Valve restarted development of Half-Life 2 and cut a bunch of weapons, the role of the OICW, the original AR2, was transformed into the exotic alien weapon we know now, and the E.Y.E rifle's model was perfect for the job. Though, why a flare rifle was designed to look like this, who knows. I don't have a copy of Raising the Bar, yet. But speaking of Half-Life, what about Unreal? The original Unreal had multiple unusual weapons, even the ones that seemed like they were supposed to be built and used by humans in the setting. The first actual firearm you get is the Automag, a big pistol with a thick magazine forwards of the trigger. Probably inspired by Judge Dredd's Lawgiver or something like that. Not the only sci-fi pistol designed this way, of course, but probably the only one where you can see the cartridge in the chamber from the side. Why? Unreal's weapons only get more unique from there. Like the iconic flat cannon that acts as both a shotgun and a grenade launcher, a minigun with two interlocking triple barrel clusters, and a sniper rifle with a look I can only describe as, well, alien. Then there's the 8-ball gun, the 6-barrel rocket and grenade launcher, which can load up a barrage of explosives and even lock on a target. If you saw this weapon in a screenshot without any context, you might assume it was a minigun or something like that. But nope, it's a rocket launcher. This isn't even mentioning some of the other funky weapons for that game, like the Stinger, the Bio Rifle, or the iconic Shock Rifle. The Return of the Poly expansion did add some more weapons, but they are kind of boring and conventional. Which does kind of lead me to think that maybe some of the weapons you find in Unreal were actually all made by aliens. I do kind of like the Combat Assault Rifle, though. Oh yeah, I guess I am obligated to mention Halo, even though I think everyone who might watch this video would probably already know about the guns in that series. Practically every firearm in Halo is iconic, recognizable, and distinct, and I don't think I really need to talk much more about them. So, what's the point of all this nerdery? I guess the point I'm making is that, when you remember that humans are creatures of habit, you should expect that the things we do in the future will have some resemblance to what we did in the past. We absorb influences from our own experiences and our own previous works, and the prior works of humanity are themselves the product of circumstances and our engagements with our own limitations. Oh man, that sounds like some sort of fucking AI bro argument. Just bear with me here. Put more simply, we work with what we know, and for what we don't know, we can only try and guess. Scratch enough of the surface away, and you'll eventually find an AR-18 underneath the boxy shelf of an LED-illuminated rifle, or maybe a tilting barrel inside a cyberpunk-looking hulk of a handgun. So, the next time you see what just looks like an M1911 being carried by a mercenary on duty in a far-off star system, don't begrudge the designer or the user, because they likely knew that John Moses Browning got it right centuries ago. And you don't fix what ain't broken. Anyway, this has just been nothing but me nerding out. I'll see you all another time. Bye for now.
It is time for me to repay the discourtesy.
Uh-oh.
Time to die, Jason.
Woo!
Yeah, nice shot there.